She walked past him every single day. Same torn sneakers, same second-hand backpack, same quiet dignity that made him stop breathing for a second. And every single day, he watched her, from across the street, from behind his coffee cup, from the window of his family's office building, the one that had his last name on it in gold letters. He wasn't the type to stare, but something about her made him forget that. Her name was Maya. She sold handmade flower bunches near the corner market, 5 days a week. Every single morning, rain or shine, she never complained, never asked for sympathy, never even looked up long enough to notice the boy watching her from above. His name was Daniel, 24 years old, the only son of one of the wealthiest families in the city, Harvard educated, everything laid out for him on a silver platter. But here's the thing, Daniel wasn't happy, and Maya, the girl who couldn't afford lunch most days, smiled more genuinely than anyone he'd ever met in his entire privileged life. He spent 6 months trying to find the courage to talk to her. 6 months. And then one day, everything he had planned, everything he had hoped for, got torn apart in the most unexpected way possible. What happened next? Nobody, not even Daniel, saw it coming. Let's rewind to where this all started. Daniel grew up behind glass. Literally. The family home was a high-rise penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the whole city. He saw life from a distance, filtered, polished, curated. His parents controlled everything, his schedule, his friends, his future. He graduated top of his class, got into every program his parents wanted, took the VP seat at the family's real estate company at 23, because that was the plan. There was always a plan. But plans have a way of feeling like cages, when nobody asked you what you wanted. The morning he first saw Maya was an ordinary Tuesday. He was running late for a meeting, walking fast with his coffee, not looking at anything except his phone. Then someone bumped into him. Not hard, just enough to make him look up. There she was, Maya, crouching down to pick up flower stems she'd dropped. White daisies scattering across the pavement. She didn't curse, didn't panic. She just quietly picked them up, one by one, arranged them back as best she could, stood, and kept walking. No drama, no fuss, just quiet grace. Daniel stood there for a full 10 seconds after she was gone. His coffee went cold. His meeting started without him. He didn't even notice. After that, he started taking the long route to work. Every morning, past the corner market, past her little flower stand, a wooden cart with a hand-painted sign that read, Maya's Blooms. Fresh every day. She never noticed him. Not once. She was always busy, talking to her customers, counting change, rearranging stems with the kind of care most people save for precious things. He learned her routine without meaning to. She arrived at 7:15 a.m. She always wore her hair tied back with whatever was nearby, sometimes a rubber band, once a piece of twine. She ate lunch at exactly noon, always the same thing, rice wrapped in a banana leaf that she brought from home. She packed up at 2 p.m. and disappeared somewhere into the older part of the city. He wanted to know where. He wanted to know everything. But Daniel was terrified. Not of rejection. He'd faced that in boardrooms. He was terrified of the way she made him feel. Terrified that this quiet girl who didn't know he existed had somehow become the most important part of his day. What he didn't. Maya had her own battles that would shatter him if he ever learned the truth. Maya wasn't just working to make ends meet. She was the sole provider for her mother, who had been battling a serious illness for 2 years. Every flower she sold, every coin she counted, went directly into hospital bills and rent. She hadn't bought anything new for herself in over a year. She smiled at every customer because she'd made a decision. She wouldn't let the weight of her life show on her face. Smiling was the one thing nobody could take from her, and that smile was the exact thing that was pulling Daniel apart at the seams. Then one morning, Daniel made a decision. He was going to talk to her. But what happened when he finally did would change both of their lives forever. It was a Thursday. Daniel showed up at Maya's cart at 7:20 a.m., 5 minutes after she'd set up. He wore a plain jacket, No watch. No driver. He left all the armor at home on purpose. He picked up a small bunch of yellow sunflowers and held them out. How much for these? Maya looked up. Just a glance. The kind she gave every customer. Quick, polite, professional. 80, she said. He handed her 100 and told her to keep the change. She frowned. Not rudely. Just puzzled. Like something didn't add up. You've walked past here before, she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Daniel froze. She had noticed him. She had noticed him. He just hadn't known. Yeah, he said. A few times. You always look like you're going somewhere important, she said, already rearranging her flowers. Conversation apparently over. He laughed without meaning to. I'm usually running away from somewhere important. That made her stop. She looked at him properly for the first time. Really looked. He came back the next morning, and the morning after that. He bought flowers he didn't need. He gave them to receptionists at the office, to the security guard downstairs, to a woman on the street who looked like she needed them. Anything to have a reason to be at that cart for 3 more minutes. Slowly, cautiously, Maya began to talk to him. Not much. She wasn't the type to open up easily. She answered his questions. She told him she'd been running the cart for 3 years. She told him flowers were the only thing that made the city feel less gray. She told him she liked sunflowers because they always face the light, even when everything around them is dark. Daniel went home that night and sat in his penthouse. All glass and marble and silence. And Michael thought about that. About a girl who had every reason to look down. Choosing every day to look up. He was falling fast, and he knew it. 3 weeks in, Daniel made a mistake. His father's assistant saw him at the flower cart. Took a photo. By the time Daniel got to the office, his father, sharp-eyed, always watching, had already seen it. Who is she? His father asked, not looking up from his desk. A vendor, Daniel said, carefully. His father finally looked up. A vendor. And you've been seen there 6 mornings in a row. The conversation that followed was cold, controlled. His father didn't shout. Men like his father never shouted. They just removed things. Quietly. Efficiently. There's a girl, his father said. Veronica. From the Calloway family. You'll have dinner with her Friday. No, Daniel said. The silence in that room was heavier than anything Daniel had ever felt. This isn't a request, his father said. Daniel didn't go to the dinner, but something else happened that same week that shook him even harder than his father's. Ultimatum. He arrived at the cart on Friday morning, and Maya wasn't there. The cart was there, but it was being managed by an older woman with tired eyes who told him, without making eye contact, that Maya was dealing with a family situation. Daniel left. Came back Saturday, Sunday, Monday. No Maya. On Tuesday, he couldn't take it anymore. He asked the woman where Maya lived. The woman studied him for a long moment. Then she quietly wrote an address on the back of a flower wrapper and handed it to him. He found the apartment in 20 minutes. 3rd floor. No elevator. The hallway smelled like disinfectant and old cooking. He knocked. Maya opened the door. She was wearing a plain gray sweater, and her hair was loose and her eyes were red. Not crying red. Exhausted red. The kind that comes from not sleeping for days. She stared at him like he was the last person on earth she expected to see. What are you doing here? She whispered. I heard you weren't at the cart, he said. I was worried. Something crossed her face. Quickly. Like a wave that came and went before she could stop it. You shouldn't be here, she said. Tell me what's wrong, he said. Please. And then, for the first time since he'd known her, Maya's careful composure broke. Not dramatically, not with sobs, just a quiet crumbling. She leaned against the doorframe and closed her eyes, and the tears ran silently down her face. My mother collapsed 2 nights ago, she said. They say it's serious. The bills. She stopped. Swallowed. I don't know what I'm going to do. Daniel didn't think. He didn't calculate. He didn't do what his upbringing had trained him to do. Weigh options, consult someone, manage the optics. He just said, I'm going to help you. You don't even know me, she said. I know enough, he said. I know you face the light, even when everything around you is dark. She opened her eyes, and for the first time, she really, truly saw him. What happened next wasn't a fairy tale. Let's be honest with you. Real life doesn't work that way. Daniel didn't write a check and fix everything. He knew that wasn't what she needed. He knew that would hurt her pride more than help her heart. Instead, he stayed. He sat with her in that narrow hallway while she called the hospital. With her the next morning to speak with the billing office. Not as the son of a wealthy family throwing money at a problem, but as someone beside her, quiet and steady. He helped her understand the paperwork. He made calls to doctors he knew through his family's medical connections and got her mother seen by a specialist who'd been booked for months. He didn't announce any of it. He just did it. Maya's mother stabilized after 10 days. The specialist found a treatment option that had been overlooked. It wasn't a miracle. It was the right information at the right time, which, for a woman who'd been navigating the system alone and exhausted, felt like one. The night they got the good news, Maya stood outside the hospital and cried. Really cried. The way you cry when the weight finally shifts. Daniel stood next to her and didn't say a single word. He just handed her a small bunch of white daisies, the same kind she'd been picking up off the pavement the morning he first saw her. She laughed through her tears when she saw them. You remembered, she said. I remember everything, he said quietly. There's a truth this story holds that goes beyond love and money and class and circumstance. Maya never needed saving. She was already extraordinary. She was already moving through her hardest chapter with more grace than most people manage in their easiest ones. What she needed, what we all need, was someone to finally see that, really see it. And Daniel? He'd spent his whole life surrounded by people who showed up for his family name. Maya was the first person who had absolutely no reason to look at him twice, and that was exactly why he'd never stopped looking at her. Sometimes the person who changes your life isn't the one who enters it with fanfare. They're the one quietly arranging flowers at a corner cart, facing the light on the hardest of days, not waiting for anyone to notice. But when someone finally does notice, everything changes. After everything Daniel and Maya went through, 6 months of silence, 1 moment of raw honesty, and a choice to simply show up. I want to ask you something real. Have you ever loved someone quietly, from a distance, afraid to say a word, watching them carry their whole world on their shoulders, while you stood on the outside, wishing you could help? Drop your answer in the comments. Tell us your story, because I promise you, you are not alone in this. If this story moved you, hit that like button, not for us, but because stories like Maya's deserve to be heard by people who need them most. And if you want more real stories that prove ordinary people carry extraordinary hearts, subscribe and stay with us. We put out a new one every week. Next time, we're following a man who secretly supported a homeless family for 2 years, without ever telling them who he was. That one will hit differently. Until then, keep your eyes open. The person who changes your life might already be right in front of you.